argue that the human heart is where intelligence comes from would seem ridiculous in the 21st century. But that is exactly what Greek philosophers, like Aristotle, argued back in 400 before Christ. Following the general field of neuroscience, visual perception, alongside it, undertook a few revolutions until we got to the understanding we have of it today. One early theory about how we see is called the emission theory. It was supported by ancient Greek thinkers. Euclid, a Greek mathematician from around 325 before Christ, wrote about this theory in his book Euclid's Optics. He believed that rays of light come out of our eyes and hit objects, making them visible. A big step forward came with the work of Alhazen, a Muslim scientist often called the father of modern optics. He proposed that light reflects off objects and enters the eye, creating an image in the brain. This idea was much closer to our modern understanding of vision. Even today, many people describe vision as a physical process that just happens to us. This view suggests a passive role for the brain in seeing, but in reality, our brains are much more actively involved in shaping what we see. If you ask a neurophysiologist, they might say that you see a particular color when certain cells in your retina, called cone cells, respond to light in a specific way. This explanation isn't wrong, but it's not the only part of the story. There isn't a simple one-to-one link between how these cells react and what color you actually see. The color you experience depends on a mix of factors, including the light bouncing off the object and the lighting in your environment. More importantly, it depends on how your brain makes educated guesses or inferences about this interaction. Our visual perception isn't just a passive process, it's a combination of what we expect to see and how our brain checks if those expectations match reality. British psychologist Kert Viiart calls this a controlled hallucination. The brain is always making predictions about the causes of the signals it receives, with these predictions flowing down through the brain's perception systems. For example, if you're looking at a coffee cup, your visual cortex is guessing what signals a coffee cup should produce. Then, sensory signals coming from the eyes work from the bottom up, keeping these predictions connected to what's actually really there, in this case, the coffee cup. If there's a mismatch, this is called a prediction error. The brain then adjusts its predictions to reduce these errors. This process of minimizing prediction errors is what creates our perception of the world. A well-known example of this is the viral image of The Dress from 2015. Although the actual colors of the dress were black and blue, this image revealed something deeper. It showed us that the people who saw the dress as gold and white weren't simply wrong, or at least weren't simply lying about what they saw. Their perceptual best guess, influenced by the light in the image and the context in which they saw it, led them to a different conclusion. Discovering that our visual perception is basically a controlled hallucination and not an objective, passive portrayal of the outside world to your brain has been another revolution in the research of neuroscience and will have an impact on how we see things.